All right, I'm here with Krista Martin, the Vice President of Growth over at Boardable. Welcome to the show, Krista.
It's great to be here. Thank you for having me. I'm excited for our conversation today.
Me too. Can you briefly explain what does Boardable do for nonprofit organizations?
Absolutely. Boardable, we've been in the board management space for a while, and board management, it's a lot of different problems all wrapped in one. And I'm sure many of your audience members know a lot of the pain points we solve for, but we are out there to help with board management issues that span from preparing for the meeting, facilitating the meeting, and following up. So in our product, you're going to be able to schedule, prepare your agenda, take minutes. We actually have an all-in-one screen video experience that you can have everything you need for a meeting all in one place. And then after, you obviously want your accountability and the progress that was made in the meeting to continue on. So we have features like discussions, but really the value we bring to nonprofits is that every year you're going to start with something that's building on the foundation you've already set. And without technology, sometimes as a partner to do that, it can get lost.
Yeah, and speaking of technology, today I have you on the show because we're going to talk about virtual and hybrid board meetings. What are some of the challenges that you've noticed among nonprofits for hosting virtual board meetings?
I think the process of digital transformation for a lot of boards has been something that is difficult. So at a board, you're going to have a variety of technical experience. You're also dealing with these really interesting problems that you don't have if you're at a company, right? So you have a lot of people, not a lot. Sometimes you can have, even a small amount of really busy people getting together that have different email domains. They have different preferred video providers that they use at work. They have different even comfortable, like how comfortable are they adopting a new product? So you're dealing with all of that, but then you're also dealing with the fact that they're in different time zones and different geographies, or maybe you've attracted board members that you couldn't have before. So you want to have the hybrid model where you can have a wider representation of your community you are serving. But what it introduces is a new way of doing things. And this digital transformation and change is really tough. And so I think when we look at what is happening in the nonprofit world right now, often I hear boards that are getting stuck in this is how we did it before. So we printed the board packet. We had a very nice setup. There were snacks before the meeting, and it cultivated a type of culture, that in-person meeting. And then you find out, okay, we could kind of synthesize some of that in a virtual way, right? Maybe there's an icebreaker at the top of the meeting, and maybe we make sure everyone has their video on so everyone can see face to face. But then you get into the hybrid where now you're trying to combine those two experiences, and you're hoping for equal participation from both sides. So it's this very difficult change we're going through. And I think if you keep the outcome you're looking for, which is a effective, engaged board, a lot of the past process and maybe some of the ways you used to do things become less important as you look for the outcome you really want your board to align on.
Yeah, one of the challenges that I was just telling you before we started our call here. So I host a book club for nonprofit leaders, and we are a fully virtual book club. And I think that I've done an intentional job of setting up norms and culture for that virtual space that I think a lot of us since COVID-19 have had to figure out. And we've learned a lot of great best practices for hosting engaging virtual meetings. But like you said, when it gets to the hybrid space, that's where things can become really complicated. One issue that I heard come up in my book club was like the technical aspect, like how do you make sure if you've got a room with 4 people in it in person, and then you've got a virtual room with 4 people in it who are trying to listen, it can be difficult to pick up even the sound from all 4 people in the physical room so that everyone online can hear it. And then there's also that challenge of participation on both sides, like you mentioned. Like sometimes people who are virtual on the screen, they may feel like their opinions come in second place to those who are in the room in person. How do you navigate those kinds of challenges?
Technology, so actually investing in hardware is a great first step. Hopefully, if you are doing hybrid or virtual, you are saving some money with having in-person meetings. So I would suggest putting some of the budget, maybe you're saving from having everyone in the same room, to something like, it's called an owl. So it's a 360 device that if you're sitting around a table, it's going to follow where the noise is coming from. And then also the mic is coming from the center of the room, and it's designed for exactly what we're talking about, for hybrid meetings. Now, the job of making sure everyone is engaged, the facilitation of a hybrid meeting, it's a skill that I think we're all going to have to learn. It is being aware of making sure you are hearing from different audiences, and some of that has to be on the facilitator. I also think technology is so maybe it's something that's up on the screen. If you have everyone that's in the virtual setting, they're seeing the exact same thing as everyone that is in person. Now, if you're virtual, right, I'm sitting here at my work office, and I have two screens, and my attention is right here, right, in our meeting, but I could be distracted by something that is maybe surrounding me, right? Maybe it's something that's happening at home or something that's on a different tab. And so finding experiences that really try to focus all of your users. One way at Boardable that we've tried to address this hybrid meeting problem is that we have your agenda, your documents, your chat, everything in the same place as your video. So you're seeing who's in person, they're seeing who's virtual, and then you're all following the same agenda up on the left side, and you're marking progress. So it's really getting those visuals where here's where we're at in the meeting, and then being very clear when there are prompts, like we need some type of decision to happen here, and here's what we expect from everyone. Is it everyone needs to speak, or do we need to be a little bit more bold and calling on people, which could be a little uncomfortable, right? And sometimes, like I said, when we're hoping for the outcome of our board to be and engaged and effective and really meeting our mission, we have to be a little bit more upfront with expectations. So we're having a hybrid meeting. What that means is I'm going to have to facilitate a little bit differently, and I'm going to be calling on some of our board members. If you have something to say, please raise your hand virtually or in person, and I will make sure I'm moderating and finding who can speak up next. So there are tools, but it really does come down to that facilitator.
Do you have tips for establishing like what types of norms should be established before our virtual or hybrid meetings?
I think it really depends on your audience and what they're comfortable with and where you're starting from. If a lot of your board members are used to hybrid meetings, or maybe are used to at least both, right? Being virtual and in person, and knowing the experience is different. It's understanding that, and then knowing the curve of what you have to introduce for new behaviors. So one example that I think would work well if you're getting into the hybrid world and you're trying to break down that virtual versus in person, start your meeting at the top and actually pair someone who's in person with someone who's virtual. Take 10 minutes. If your board meeting's huge, you probably can't do one-on-one, but maybe you could do small breakout sessions where it's 2 people in person, 2 people on a hybrid or in virtual, and then they're developing a connection, right? So now I'm more aware of the physical presence in the room, and I've had a conversation as a virtual attendee. And so now when I show up to the hybrid meeting, both my face is there, but also I have maybe 2 board members who already had a conversation with me and know some things that I'm hoping to contribute in. So just it's building that rapport and getting some of that conversation started prior to the meeting and breaking down that wall.
Yeah, I love that. One thing that I've noticed as a weakness for some of the virtual and hybrid board meetings that I've been to is I think when we, like you mentioned, when we're meeting remotely, there are all of these extra distractions that the facilitator can't really control for because, in an in-person meeting, we know that we're all going to be in this one contained conference room and nothing else is happening but the meeting. What advice would you give for facilitators of virtual and hybrid meetings to keep everyone connected so that board members aren't just like on their phone during the meeting or getting distracted because there's too much downtime in between topics or something like that?
I think it again comes down to your board really being bought in at the time they're spending together is something that they're committed to and that they want to give back. It can be really difficult. I think even if you're in person, sometimes you can check out, but it is important to establish, here's what I expect. And if things come up, because hopefully the introduction of a hybrid meeting, there are benefits, right? So maybe there are board members who wouldn't have been able to attend it all because they have a sick kid at home. And maybe that sick kid is in the background and is a little bit more distracting. And so establishing that up front of, maybe it's not in public in front of everyone. Facilitator, maybe I'm attending a meeting and is sick. This happens more than you want at this age, right? But I want to give back. I don't want to be limited by the fact that, I'm the sole parent for the night for my kids. So maybe what I would say coming into that meeting, Jenni, I'm very excited to attend. I want to participate. I will have my camera on most of the time, but if something does happen, I will turn my camera off and there's potential that I might miss a portion of the meeting. So just again, communication. Here's my surroundings. Here's what I'm up to. And if you have that all in one place and you create a way for everyone to see, I'm dedicated, I'm showing up to this meeting, even if it doesn't look like it used to, I think that's a really good first step.
How would you recommend that nonprofit leaders prepare ahead of time for a hybrid or virtual meeting in a way that you may not need to for an in-person meeting?
Hopefully in person, you're sending out those meeting materials early as well. But I think even more so if it's virtual or hybrid, really focusing the topics that you want discussion on. So because it can be a little bit more difficult to facilitate that of if you just somehow focus on the screen and you focus on one of the speakers instead of the other, right? Making sure all of the attendees at the meeting know when they're supposed to jump in as well. So know what's expected of, maybe in your agenda, it's very clear, we're going to have a discussion that we want everyone to be involved in and bring up XYZ, or we have a vote that's coming and we need, maybe you don't have what you need for the vote. So there will be inputs that are put into this section of the meeting, and just being very clear of, this is listening, this is participation, this is what you can expect.
Interesting. Love that advice. You mentioned voting. That's a question that I've received as a nonprofit consultant. Can boards make decisions that are binding through virtual or hybrid meetings?
That's all up to your bylaws and how you are adjusting for the new world. How do you want to organize and write that into your bylaws that say you're using Boardable, that we can conduct polling or votes virtually. You still have to have a certain number that vote, reach quorum, and you have all of what makes your bylaws, but you do have to make some changes on how you structure your board.
Yeah, for sure. Looking at your bylaws is really important, I think. Making adjustments is needed. Now, at the end of a board meeting, how should chair people, how should executive directors and CEOs be following up with board members after a board meeting to make sure that they're fully engaged in between as well?
That is a great question. I think depending on the boards that you are running, like what are the expectations for your board members? So making sure your board members know their role and that hopefully activity between the meeting is something they're expecting. I think first and foremost, sometimes when board members get busy, and your chair is hoping for more engagement, but they never have that conversation of right when the meeting's ending, we're going to have a discussion in between now and the next meeting. Make sure you partake. I'm going to post it on this day. All you need to do is, reply with your thoughts and maybe make a connection here or there. So being very clear with the time you have, whether it's in person or hybrid, that you're establishing those next steps and then following up for the place or the home of where those things will happen. So if it is maybe a discussion thread. So in a lot of board management tools, you're going to have secure discussions where it's not getting lost in an email thread. It's not over Facebook. It's not in text. It's going to be in context of the meeting you just had, the topics that need to keep movement going until the next meeting. And so maybe off of that discussion, you assign tasks, but it's going to one place where a board member can know this is what's expected of me and how I move and come prepared for the next meeting.
Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit more about, I know you told me the basics of Boardable, how Boardable supports board management, but I'd love to know, what are some specific features of Boardable other than the ones that you already mentioned? You mentioned, you have everything on one screen, which I think is really helpful. What else can nonprofit leaders find in Boardable to help facilitate those virtual and hybrid meetings?
A big piece of when maybe you haven't gone through a digital transformation in your board, so you're using digital duct tape, that's what we like to call, you're using Google Drive and Google Calendar, or maybe you're using Outlook and Teams, and it's all of a variety of software that you're kind of cobbling together to run your board operations. And that works for a time, but you lose all of that movement, all of that momentum. You can't go and reference those things because they're in so many different places. So a big piece of Boardable is you have that historical record of your meeting and everything that's happening on your board. This is just really valuable. You have new board members that are coming in, they can reference what happened before. You have new leadership that's coming in and they need to see what's working, what's not working, and referencing meetings and not losing them in the Zoom, right? Because after that meeting's gone, maybe it's in Zoom. Of course, you have a recording. That's great. There are other features you can use. But at Boardable, we have all of the tools you need to really prepare, which means your leaders can prepare their agenda and you don't have to lose it in your email thread. It's in Boardable. You can log in, find your agenda, reference the previous minutes. You can look at tasks that were assigned in the last meeting and make sure you're showing up prepared. So a lot of that prep is really important, and the collaboration, it's not working outside of where the meeting's going to take place. It's all right there. You can have multiple stakeholders upload their own documents to your agenda, and as you're building it out, make it a real collaborative experience. We talked about facilitating the meeting, so we have a great experience for that. If you're not using, we have our own video platform. If you're not using that, you can use Zoom, you can use Meet, and still use a lot of the power of Boardable. And then following up, we have a document center. So all of the good material you're preparing for and creating pre and post meeting should be stored in one place. You can reference it. You can limit the visibility of it, of who sees it. And then we also have tasks and discussions. Discussions are, I mentioned those earlier, but it's such a big piece of growing and getting to know each other. So board members don't often, everything can feel pretty formal in that board meeting, and taking it out of the set time period you have to discuss XYZ, right? You already meet relatively, maybe not as frequently as you would if you were an organization that works there full time, but the discussion thread, it really allows you to take topics that you didn't get to deep dive into, give them a place, and allow everyone to asynchronously contribute. And now, Krista, if maybe I wasn't able to really participate in the meeting because my 19-month-old daughter was sick at home, I can engage in this discussion. I could say my perspective, where I'm coming from, and give it some context even that maybe I wouldn't have had the time for in the meeting. So that is a great feature to keep that momentum and culture, keep building in between meetings.
Yeah, very cool. How can nonprofit leaders check out Boardable? How can they learn more?
We have a website, boardable.com, and we actually have a free version that's completely free. So boards of all sizes have these problems, and our free version does not have everything. It doesn't have all the features I just talked about, but we really help prepare and facilitate those meetings in our free product. So regardless of your revenue, we don't know what's going to happen with the economy. Take the next step in digital transformation of your board so you're ready when maybe you do have the opportunity to grow your board or your nonprofit grows and you have the right tools to help you get there. So go there, sign up for a free account. We have a free trial of all of our pro features. If you are serious about buying, we have a great consultant team that's just going to help you understand maybe where you're at in your journey of digital transformation and where Boardable can be a partner to really get you to where you want to be. So again, focusing less on the process you're used to in your in-person or your virtual, and really looking at what do you want to do going forward? And here are some tools that can help you.
Very cool. Thank you so much for being here today, Krista.
Yes, thank you. I hope this was helpful.
Yeah, for sure.